A very good Friday evening to all our viewers. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. This is News First, where the people come first. I'm Mariam Gunawardena. Before we head on to our stories in detail, here is a look at your headlines.
Joint operation to remove Occupy Galle-Face protesters. 9 arrested, 14 hospitalized. Raid was uncalled for. Protesters attacked even after assuring to vacate premises. BBC journalist attacked at Gunawardena.
Go.
Will the Aragalaya come to an end?
මේ පුරවැසි අරගලය සාමකාමී පුරවැසි අරගලය තවදුරටත් ඉදිරියට නොයවති යන බව සපත කරනවා. ස්තුතියි.
International community expressed serious concern over Gunawardena incident.
To respect the rights of all, to release those who have been detained, and to make sure that those injured are attended to.
Dinesh Gunawardena appointed new Prime Minister. 18 ministers appointed for the new cabinet. 2 more deaths at fuel queues.
Main sponsor.
Earn a highest interest rate of 21% for 4 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru.
In your lead story tonight, security forces in Sri Lanka raided the main anti-government protest camp in the capital Colombo early today, arresting protesters and dismantling tents. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Thaldua told Newsfirst that 9 people were arrested, and among them is attorney-at-law Nuwan Bopage.
Activists had announced they would vacate the president's office that was occupied by the people involved in the people's struggle, or the Aragalaya, today, after removing the placards and flags on Thursday evening. Yesterday, the activists said that they will vacate the area from the president's office to the agitation site at Galle-Face. The activists marked day 104 yesterday at the Occupy Galle-Face protest site. At around 1:30 this morning, a large number of police and army personnel stormed the site from the president's office and started dismantling the temporary tents and shelters. While one contingent of military personnel moved forward along the Galle Road from the president's office, several other large military contingents were stationed around Gunawardena, surrounding the protest site.
යුනිෆෝම් එකට මාර ආදරයක් තිබ්බා. අද ඒක නැති කරගන්න එපා. මුළු රටක් බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ. ජාත්‍යන්තර නිවුස් හැම එකම අද බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ ඔයාලා දිහා. මූණු වහගෙන හිටියට ඔය ඔක්කොම හොයන්න පුළුවන්. ගහනවා නම් ගහලා දාන්න. ශ්‍රී ලංකාව වෙනුවෙන් අද අපි කුටි කන්න ලෑස්තිලා ඉන්නේ. මොකද හෙට මේක බාර දෙන්න ඉදි තමයි ඔයාලා මේ විදිහට හැසිරෙන්න හදන්නේ. මේ යුද්ධයක් දිනව මිනිස්සු රණී වික්‍රමසිංහ කියලා අවුරුදු 45ක් පච්චවිත දේශපාලඥයෙ නිසා බලු වෙන්න එපා. ඔයාලගේ සීනියර් ඔෆිසර් අපිට සාකච්ඡා මාර්ගයෙන් විසඳ ගන්න පුළුවන්.
Sri Lanka police and Sri Lanka army entered the Gunawardena premises from multiple roads, including Lotus Road and Janadipati Mawatha, and multiple other roads.
මේ ගහන්න එපා කොල්ලන්ට. අපි මේ නීත්‍යානුකූල ඒරියාවක ඉන්නේ. වයර් තියන් ගහන්න කොල්ලන්ට. උද්ඝෝෂ ඒරියා එකේ ඉන්නේ. රජයෙන් බාර දීලා මේ උද්ඝෝෂ ඒරියා එකේ ඉන්නේ. මොනවද ඉන්නේ? මොනවද ඉන්නේ අයියෝ?
Security forces then dismantled the IT center at the protest grounds and also removed the tent dubbed as the People's Hut that provided food and water to the people for more than 100 days. While all this was going on, security forces also assaulted several journalists, including a BBC reporter who was reporting on the incidents.
BBC. Media. Go. Media. Go.
An LGBTQ activist was seriously wounded in an assault. Among those rounded up and beaten by the security forces was a lawyer.
They took away my phone. This is the actions of a clean slate leader. We are doing everything for this country. Can we be asleep at this time? I need to be in court tomorrow. Where is this country heading to? I'm not speaking of the assault. As lawyers, we always represented the struggle and justice. If lawyers cannot step out, what is the fate of this country?
Those who were injured as a result of being brutally assaulted during the raid were taken out of Gunawardena later on in the day. A group of lawyers as well as officials representing the Human Rights Commission were seen at the Gunawardena Aragala site.
The protesters at the Gunawardena Aragalaya had already decided to hand over the area surrounding the president's office back to the government. This attack was totally uncalled for. They may have referred to the public security ordinance when they carried out this attack, but they have completely violated public security by carrying out this attack.
එල්ල කරලා තියෙන්නේ මේක ඇත්තටම කියනවා නම් මහජන ආරක්ෂක පනත ගැන කතා කරමින් කරාට මහජන ආරක්ෂාව සම්පූර්ණ අනතුරේ දැමීමක් විදිහට තමයි අපිට පේන්නේ.
All roads leading to the president's office were barricaded with heavy security deployment this evening.
A total of 14 people were injured following the military and police raid on the Gulf East protest site early today.
A senior spokesperson for the Colombo National Hospital said that 14 people were injured in the raid and they are being treated for their injuries. Newsfirst correspondent said that journalists Chaturanga Pradeep Kumara and Kasun Kumarage, who were also attacked, continue to receive treatment in hospital.
In the
middle of the night, without prior notice, the police and the army came without any name tags. Then they attacked the venerable Theros who were engaged in a satyagraha, the differently abled communities who were at the protest site, the mothers who were holding their children, and also the youth. There was a library at the president's office. There were no weapons or bullets there. Attorney at law Nuwan Bopage was attacked, and Anuranga, who was seriously injured, was attacked again and arrested. Journalists there were also attacked. Foreign journalists at the protest site were brutally attacked. The army also brutally beat up all those who live streamed footage of what was happening. Ranil Wickramasinghe made a big mistake by attacking the LGBT community, that they are a very innocent group. They attacked from all sides. Do not harm this protest site. They are making a mess of this country. We are not afraid of suppression. You are destroying the country, and that is why we have taken the streets. People took the streets because they didn't have food to eat, they didn't have fuel or gas. And if you are attacking them for that, you are making a big mistake. Then you will have to kill all 25 million. And if you think that you can do that using the army, please do it. We're not afraid to die or get beaten up. Remember, there is no way to go to a hospital. We are surrounded from all corners. But this struggle will not stop.
You cannot stop this struggle through attacks of this nature. They have taken away all our belongings. They didn't issue a prior warning. It seems like he is trying to follow the footsteps of his uncle, who had a 5 out of 6 majority in the parliament back then. If he thinks that he can do the same by using his majority, which he gained by bribing MPs, he is mistaken. Don't try to play the same trick with us. This attack only strengthened our struggle to chase away Ranil. Thugs who were dressed in military uniforms attacked us. We have a question here. Is Ranil Wickremesinghe trying to give back life to the Rajapaksa regime using these thugs? This is similar to what he did in Batalanda. The people's struggle will only continue.
අර බටලන්දේ වගේ මේ පුරවැසි අරගලය සාමකාමී පුරවැසි අරගලය තවදුරටත් ඉදිරියට නොයවති යන බව සපත කරනවා.
Police has issued a statement of clarification this evening on the raid on the Gota Gogama protest site in Golface.
Sri Lanka police said that attempts made by authorities to remove the protesters who were occupying the president's office on multiple occasions were futile. Sri Lanka police said despite making repeated calls for the protesters to vacate the premises in a peaceful manner, the protesters refused to comply and behaved impulsively. The statement said that after considering all other avenues and in the absence of an alternative method to remove the protesters, a decision was taken to remove them from the president's office in such a manner. Pointing out that the police officers are authorized under the general law to enter, search and make arrests, Sri Lanka police said the same power is vested with the army under the emergency regulations. The 9 people who were arrested from opposite the president's office during the early morning raid were granted bail by the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court. 9 suspects, including Attorney-at-Law Nuwan Bopage, were arrested and charged for being part of an unlawful assembly.
Now, the incidents at Golface made it to the headlines of several leading international news reports as well.
The BBC reporting on the raid carried out at the protest site opposite the President's office published an article titled "Forces Raid Anti-Government Protest Camp." According to the report, a BBC video journalist was beaten by the army and one soldier snatched his phone and deleted videos.
Go.
Al Jazeera reported military raids Sri Lanka protest camps, leaders arrested. The report says the military in Sri Lanka has taken control of the presidential secretariat in the capital after brutally assaulting the protesters. Soldiers also destroyed tents at the adjacent Gota Gogama protest site, arrested several protest leaders and cordoned off the area together with about 100 protesters. CNN reported the story with the headline, "Sri Lankan troops tear down protest camp outside the president's office." The story claims Sri Lanka's police and military troops forcibly removed anti-government protesters camped outside the presidential office in Colombo in a pre-dawn raid on Friday on the order of the country's new president. The Reuters news agency report stated, Sri Lankan security forces raided a protest camp occupying government grounds in the main city of Colombo early on Friday and cleared out a section of it, a sign that the country's new president was cracking down a day after his swearing in. NDTV reporting on the incident earlier today said Hundreds of Sri Lankan soldiers and police raided the main anti-government protest camp in the capital early Friday and began tearing down tents of unarmed activists. Sky News published its report on Sri Lanka with the title, "Protesters Injured as Sri Lankan Forces Raid Anti-Government Camp Outside President's Office." Associated Press published an article on its website with the title, "New Sri Lankan President Sworn In. Police clear protest site." The Guardian, reporting on last night's incident, said Sri Lankan security forces have carried out a violent early morning raid on the main anti-government protest camp in Colombo, beating protesters, destroying tents and arresting 9 people. With the headline, "Sri Lanka security forces raid protest camp as Ranil Wickremesinghe flexes muscle," the article goes on to note that the protest groups had announced that they would be peacefully handing back the building to the government on Friday afternoon, but instead the government took it back by force.
Now, Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka Gopal Bagle says India's policy is neighbourhood first and Sri Lanka has a central place.
In the neighbourhood, our policy is neighbourhood first, and in that neighbourhood first policy, Sri Lanka has a very central place because it's our maritime neighbour. Extending help to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka from our Reserve Bank on the foreign exchange reserve front. We would like very much to help the economy of Sri Lanka itself by building more strength in the economic partnership between the two countries. And one way to do it is, of course, promote more investment from India in the sectors of priority for Sri Lanka, such as ports, renewable energy, infrastructure, agriculture, dairying, education, information technology. I do hope that our investment will continue to shore up the Sri Lankan economy and build more strength.
The international community, including diplomats and rights groups, have noted concern over the incidents that unfolded in Goldface, Colombo.
UN resident coordinator to Sri Lanka, Hannah Singer, said she was gravely concerned by the use of force to disperse protesters. She said that journalists and human rights defenders have a right to monitor demonstrations and their functions should not be impeded. British High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Sarah Hulton, also said she was very concerned about reports from the Goldface protest site. She said that the UK had made clear the importance of the right to peaceful protest. Canadian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, David McKinnon, also expressed concern over the incidents that took place. Commenting on the incident, Amnesty International South Asia said the authorities must stand down immediately. The right to protest must be protected. Sri Lankan authorities must immediately cease these acts of violence and release those arrested unlawfully in this manner. Amnesty International South Asia also said authorities must protect the freedom of the press. Journalists must not be barred from Gotagu Gama. Blocking journalists from doing their job directly violates freedom of press. New Zealand High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Michael Appleton, says the events at Goldface overnight are concerning. In a tweet, he says, "Freedom of speech, freedom of the press and the right to peaceful protest are foundations of all free and open societies. They must be protected." Norwegian ambassador to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Trina Eskadel, also condemned the attacks on peaceful protesters, where journalists and lawyers were also injured. In a tweet, she says, "We urge authorities to show restraint, respect for the rule of law and fundamental rights. People have a right to peaceful assembly and to express themselves freely." She also adds that reports of injured protesters being denied medical attention for several hours and journalists and lawyers being denied access to the site are also deeply troubling. Swiss ambassador to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Dominic Fergler, issuing a tweet, said, quote, "The right to peacefully demonstrate and express opinions remains important. We urge for restraint and full access of medical services. Sri Lanka needs mutual respect and cooperation to get on," unquote. Delegation of the European Union to Sri Lanka also says freedom of expression has been proved essential to Sri Lanka's current transition. Releasing a statement, the SARC Journalist Forum said it strongly condemns the attacks and arrest of journalists and activists in Sri Lanka. The Human Rights Council Sri Lanka core group said it is dismayed at the violence which took place at Galface. In a tweet, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the UK to the World Trade Organization and the United Nations in Geneva, Simon Manley said, quote, "We call for the full respect for human rights and the rule of law," unquote.
Speaking to the media, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung also commented on the incidents that unfolded in Galface early this morning.
We're gravely concerned about the actions taken against the protesters by the security forces. We believe that the new president and his government must show confidence, must earn the confidence of its people, of the Sri Lankan people and the international community by really adhering to democracy and human rights and governance. And this is not the way to show that confidence. And we urge the government to respect the rights of all, to release those who have been detained, and to make sure that those injured are attended to. This is really a deep concern for the United States, but not only for the U.S. And the international community, but most importantly for the Sri Lankan people who have so much hope for stability and at a time of great challenges in this country.
Issuing a tweet, the US ambassador to Sri Lanka said she met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe today to express her grave concern over the unnecessary and deeply troubling escalation of violence against protesters overnight. She said, quote unquote, "The President and Cabinet have an opportunity and an obligation to respond to the calls of Sri Lankans for a better future." She added that this is not the time to crack down on citizens, but instead to look ahead at the immediate and tangible steps the government can take to regain the trust of the people, restore stability and rebuild the economy.
Issuing a statement, the Eisenhower Fellowship Sri Lanka unequivocally deplored the attack.
The Eisenhower Fellowship Sri Lanka said, at this critical juncture, when Sri Lanka is confronted with multiple challenges, the authorities must remember its primary duty to protect and uphold the rights of its citizens. Acting in an undemocratic manner will only put Sri Lanka further at risk in the eyes of the international community, at a time our nation needs to rebuild its economy and global image. The EF Sri Lanka group urges President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the government to desist from all forms of violence targeting its citizens and to uphold the democratic processes and the rule of law.
Speaking at a press briefing at the Parliament Hill building in Canada, Canadian Director of Human Rights Watch Farida Dave commented on the current state of affairs in Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka's new government should use the transfer of power to address the acute economic, political, and human rights problems that have been the focus of months of protest, while its international partners like Canada should insist that the new government tackle entrenched problems of corruption, inequity, and lack of accountability for past abuses. If a more stable government enjoying public legitimacy cannot be established, the risk of a humanitarian crisis and of greater violence and repression is very high. With that said, Canada should urgently call upon Sri Lanka's new president and authorities to respect human rights in resolving the political and economic crisis. Prime Minister Trudeau should urgently communicate to his Sri Lankan counterpart that abuses against protesters are unacceptable. He should also affirm that a stable government with public legitimacy is essential to address the urgent needs of Sri Lankans as well as the root causes of the current crisis.
The Bar Association of Sri Lanka strongly and unreservedly condemned the use of force and violence by the authorities in attacking protesters at Galface near the President's office.
The BASL said it has been informed that at least 2 attorneys at law who sought to intervene in their professional capacity had been assaulted by several personnel. The BASL demands for an immediate halt to the unjustified and disproportionate actions of the armed forces targeting civilians. The BASL demands that President Ranil Wickremesinghe ensure that he and his government respect the rule of law and fundamental rights of the people. The use of armed forces to suppress civilian protests on the very first day in office of the the new president is despicable and will have serious consequences on our country's social and economic and political stability. The BASL calls for an immediate inquiry into the incidents and for disciplinary action against all persons involved. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka said that all those involved, including those who gave orders on the same, must be held accountable. The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka condemns the brutal and despicable attack on the peaceful protesters at the Goldface vicinity by the military in the early morning hours of today. It added that it is a total violation of the fundamental rights of the people by the action of the executive. The HRC advises the state to identify the perpetrators and take appropriate action and ensure such actions by the military or any action within the control of the state to violate the fundamental rights of the people will never occur in the future. In the meantime, the Human Rights Commission will conduct its own investigation to ensure that the rule of law is maintained.
An IT professionals group called Save Sri Lanka has condemned in the strongest possible terms the combined police and military assault on unarmed civilians, journalists and attorneys at law at the Goldface protest site.
Issuing a statement, Save Sri Lanka said the assault on the Goldface protest site is an assault on the sovereignty of the people of Sri Lanka. The statement reads, "We are forced to conclude that this is a naked display of dictatorial executive powers enjoyed by a president who was not elected by the people and is backed by a ruling party that has been resoundingly rejected by the people."
Now a tense situation arose once again this evening at one of the roadblocks leading to the President's office.
A tense situation arose this evening at the roadblock in Lotus Road when Sri Lankan Navy officers took measures to remove the people who were gathered there. A group of journalists were taken on a tour of the President's office that was cleared of protesters.
In more news making headlines tonight, Dinesh Gunawardena was sworn in as Sri Lanka's 27th Prime Minister today. 18 cabinet ministers were sworn in as well, and according to Minister Harin Fernando, the cabinet would function for 2 weeks.
Dinesh Gunawardena was sworn in as the new Prime Minister today in the presence of President Wickremesinghe. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena went to school at Royal College Colombo and then went overseas for his higher education. He received a diploma in international business from the Netherlands and a BBA degree in business administration and international transport from the University of Oregon in the United States. He entered politics through the Mahajana Eksat Peramuna, and in May 1983 he was elected a member of parliament. Since then he was elected to parliament and held multiple ministerial portfolios.
The budget will be presented to the Parliament in the upcoming weeks. We have made a program with a proper timeline. We are open for discussions with any democratic political party or any affiliated party in the country. We have opened doors in the Parliament for all our citizens to work together with us in order to restore our motherland to its former glory.
The new cabinet of ministers also took oaths this afternoon in the presence of President Ranil Wickremesinghe in the Prime Minister's office.
The ministers who took oaths and their subjects are as follows. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, Public Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils and Local Government. Minister Douglas Devananda, Fisheries. Minister Susil Premajayanta, Education. Minister Bandulu Gunawardena, Transport and Highways and Media. Minister Keheliya Ramukwella, Health and Water Supply. Minister Mahinda Amaravira, Agriculture, Wildlife and Forest Conservation. Minister Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, Justice, Prisons and Constitutional Reforms. Minister Harin Fernando, Tourism and Lands. Minister Dr. Ramesh Patirana, Plantations and Industries. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga, Urban Development and Housing. Minister Ali Sabri, External Affairs. Minister Vidura Vikramanayaka, Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs. Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara, Power and Energy. Minister Nasir Ahmed, Environment. Minister Roshan Ranasinghe, Sports and Youth Affairs and Irrigation. Minister Manusha Nanyakara, Labour and Foreign Employment. Minister Tiran Alas, Public Security. Minister Nalin Fernando, Trade, Commerce and Food Security.
This is an interim cabinet. I don't think it will last for even 2 weeks. I believe the president will go for the national government concept. When that happens, all of this will change. Journalists also questioned the minister regarding the incidents that transpired at Gotagogama earlier today. I am not aware of it. I saw it after waking up this morning. I believe the situation could have been handled better. However, according to the reports we received thus far, the army had informed the protesters. Minister Tiran Alas has been saying this for a few days. Those who work at the president's office were unable to report to work. I believe it could have been handled better. Retired General Kamal Gunaratne has been reappointed as the Secretary of Defence by President Ranil Wickremesinghe with effect from today. He was reappointed as per the powers vested on President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Venerable Dr. Omalpe Sobitathera has condemned the raid on the peaceful protest site in Golface.
They launched this brutal attack on unarmed innocent citizens who were engaging in a democratic struggle using the armed military forces. Even Gotabaya Rajapaksa could have done this to suppress the people's struggle, but he still didn't do it. This gives out the message that Ranil Wickremesinghe is a leader who chooses brutality more than Gotabaya Rajapaksa. You cannot fight this struggle using force or weapons. The only way out of this struggle is through a political solution.
Meanwhile, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, has also condemned the brutal raid on the Golface protest site.
And we want to completely condemn this high-handed action of the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, even before 24 hours went after his swearing in and aiming at the civil society. The President became President of this country only on the vote of the parliamentarians. And he came saying that he would protect the Constitution. And so that he has acted against the basic right of the people to protest, which is a democratic right. Therefore, we hold the President responsible for any future disaster that might come as a result of this action. It is also noted that among the people who were attacked were people connected to the media, journalists and others, both from the local media as well as the foreign media. We wish to condemn these attacks on the media personnel very strongly. What will happen because of such actions, such high-handed actions, will be the tremendous amount of discredit that this country will earn overseas from the other countries and from the international community. Therefore, we want to condemn those actions very firmly. The people in this country are suffering. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the President to look into those matters and not to engage in attacking people. Therefore, we ask him and the government, whatever that government be, to investigate through an independent inquiry as to how this attack took place and take action against all these people. And if the government doesn't do it, we call upon the international community and all the human rights organizations of the international arena to investigate, to conduct investigations. We also want to condemn the fact that these politicians, especially the president, came to that chair thanks to the campaign of protests that were organized by these youth, and to attack the very same people is like kicking the ladder after one comes to the top.
Now, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa chaired an all-party meeting today.
ජනාධිපතිවරයා සතු වගකීමෙන් එතුමට පැහැර යන්න බැහැ කියන එක.
I would like to state that the president cannot shrink his responsibility over this attack. He must be held responsible for this. Foreign ambassadors had clearly said that if Sri Lanka wants the support of the international community to overcome this crisis, democracy must be protected. They also pointed out that the human rights must be protected. We would like to inform the president to make a statement regarding this incident to the people.
ජනාධිපතිවරයාට මේ පිළිබඳව යම්කිසි පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් රටටත් ජනතාවටත් කළ යුතුමයි.
විරෝධතාකරුවන් මතින් අද ගමන් කරපුවේ
The suppression that was directed against the protesters today will be directed against trade unions tomorrow. This suppression will definitely be directed against the trade unions and the media. This suppression will also be directed against political parties. Therefore, if you are not raising your voice against these acts today, there will be no one left to speak for you when this happens to you. Therefore, we as the all-party collective would like to inform the government, if anyone thinks that the democratic rights of the people can be suppressed using brute force, look to the past and see what happened to the leaders who acted like dictators. The people have always taught them a lesson in the end.
අවසාන පාඩම ජනතාව විසින් උන්ට කියලා දීලා තියෙනවා.
ඒතකොට මමත් පුද්ගලිකව හිතාගෙන හිටියා හරි වැඩක් කරනවා නම් රටේ අර්බුදයක් තියෙන අවස්ථාවක.
I personally believe that during this time of crisis, if something positive can be done for the country, we too must be ready to work with this president. But after what he did this morning, we condemn this journey that the president is embarking on. We saw the voice of the people who are suffering coming out from Galface. This voice cannot be suppressed like this. The issues of the people must be addressed. However, we see a president who is attempting to assault the people and sweeping the issues that the country is facing under the carpet.
This is the response of the Janata Vimukti Peramuna.
It was the people's struggle that removed the crown of the Rajapakshas. Therefore, the Rajapakshas are enraged. They want to seek revenge and they handed over that contract to Ranil Wickremesinghe. So Ranil Wickremesinghe is seeking revenge on behalf of the Rajapakshas. That is why they are attacking the people's struggle. Ranil Wickremesinghe never lived on this world. He lived in a different one and does not understand the ground reality. If he is trying to intimidate the people from rising up, that will fail. No one will be afraid of him. There is no reason for the protest to end. Therefore, this protest will lead to the victory of the people, and we believe that it will not take that long.
Tamil National Alliance parliamentarian M.A. Sumandaran held a president responsible for the attacks on the protesters.
This attack on the peaceful protesters who have actually got international recognition today as the most peaceful of the protesters is to be condemned without any reservation whatever. It is only because of these protesters that Ranil Wickremesinghe is the president today, not for any other reason. And when these peaceful protesters were attacked on the 9th of May this year, then Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was not Prime Minister even at that time, issued two statements. And I have the official UNP Twitter account giving those statements. He vehemently condemned that attack. He even said, I will withdraw all the support that I give the government now if you continue in this way. These are his statements. He laid a condition that the Galface protesters must not be touched. Now he has gone back on all of that. But within 24 hours, he's shown his true colors, and he's made it impossible for us to support him, even by his own standards, which he said on the 9th of May. People were attacked early hours in the morning At least on the 9th of May, it was in broad daylight and some thugs attacked them. But this is far worse. Under cover of darkness, state forces have attacked them. So the responsibility for this must fall squarely on the shoulders of the executive president, Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Former JVP parliamentarian R. Chandrasekharan expressed the following views during a press briefing held today. We condemn violence. Ranil Wickremesinghe is one of the organizers who created the Black July in 1983. He was the Minister of Youth Affairs back then. In order to recreate the 1983 Black July, the protesters at Gotakogama were attacked. We would like to say one thing to Ranil Wickremesinghe. In 1983, Tamil and Sinhala communities were divided to hold on to political power. Today is the 22nd of July. Today, you cannot play games by dividing the Sinhalese and the Tamils. It is becoming clear. This will only unite Sinhalese and Tamils.
தமிழர்களும் சிங்களவர்களும் முஸ்லிம்களும் ஒன்று கூடுகின்ற நிலைமை ஏற்பட்டிருக்கின்றது.
For our people who are starving, for those who suffer in silence, for the people in need, breaking barriers and bringing hope to their lives across rural Sri Lanka. Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
Introducing EVA Heavy Flow Wings with an extended length of 280mm to provide extra protection on days you need it most. And for the first time in Sri Lanka, an antibacterial layer to minimize microbial growth. EVA, leading with confidence.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Eslon Insight. Eslon ජීවයයි ජලයේ ජීවිතේ.
2 more senior citizens have died while waiting in line for fuel in Mathugama and Kinya today.
A 70-year-old man died after suddenly collapsing while waiting in line for fuel at a filling station in Mathugama. It was reported that fuel was delivered to the filling station after 10 days and there was a rush to obtain fuel due to the absence of a proper system to distribute fuel among those who were in line. The man who collapsed was rushed and admitted to the Meghalaya Regional Hospital where he was ruled dead upon admission. A 59-year-old man from Kinya, Trincomalee, had also died after suddenly collapsing while waiting in line for fuel. Newsfirst correspondent said that the deceased has been waiting in line for fuel for his motorcycle for the past 2 days. The body was moved to the Kinya-based hospital for the post-mortem examination.
The Divisavya program to uplift the lives of poverty-stricken families was held in the Badula district today. The program is sponsored by LOLC Holdings.
The second phase of the Divisavya program to uplift the lives of poverty-stricken families continues for the 15th day. Food rations were distributed among families in the Badula district. The Divisavya program aims at supporting low-income families amidst the economic crisis.
Protests are taking place across universities in Sri Lanka. We leave you tonight with footage from the Kelaniya University students' protest. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Gunawardena. Good night and take care.